Well, I'm on box 20 now. When I first started this, I thought taking the one day to unbox the 26 boxes would have been enough. Turns out, not even close. So I got box 20 now, which is a fairly relatively small box. That means I have 6 more boxes to go. Looking at them, 3 of them are 4 cubic feet, which is about twice what I've got here. And 3 of them are 5 cubic feet, so there's still a lot of games to go through. So let's get started with this box. First one I have in here is Silver and Gold, which is a flip and write. And this is the first time I came across a game where you're actually writing directly on the cards. And it feels wrong. When you first do this, it feels like you're gonna mess up those cards and you shouldn't be doing it. Maybe they should be sleeved. And I know some of my friends actually went ahead and sleeved them just because it just doesn't feel right. But this is an interesting one. You kind of trying to collect different treasures for the different shapes and what you're uncovering on these different islands, and it's like a set collection. So when you complete a card, you get the points, and then depending on what you cover up with the shapes that gets flipped up, you get, potential for points as well. The next one I have in here is not a game that I had heard of at all. It came as a little game, part of a box, a lot that I had purchased, and that is Vampire Queen. And Vampire Queen is an amazing game. It's become a family favorite. Like, we play this one a lot. So it's a trick. Well, is it a trick-taking game? So you kind of take turns and you got to play higher than what the previous person played. And then till everybody gets a turn, and whoever played the highest gets to start the next round. You can put as many cards as you want as long as they're the same card. But then, so let's say I put 3, 4, somebody's going to have to put at least 3 cards. Not at least, it has to be exactly 3 cards higher than a 4. Then there's a couple of cards that are vampire hunters. So those ones, if a vampire hunter is played and you can only play them at the start of a round, everybody's got to put 1 card in, and you're trying to put a low card, because whoever has the highest card collects all of those cards and it goes into their hands. Then as soon as somebody kind of get rid of their last cards, everybody else counts whatever's left in their hands, and those are points. And you're trying to do 5 rounds with as little points as possible. I love this game. I am not good at this game. There was one time where I scored 500 points plus. Like, I don't even know how that's possible, but I managed to do it. So that's Vampire Queen. Amazing, amazing game. Then the next one I have in here. Oh, let's try this one. This one is Super Mega Lucky Box. This is another flip and write. And this is another one where you actually write directly on the cards. And it's kind of plays like a gamer's bingo. So you'll flip a card, it'll have a number, and you go through your cards and you'll cross off one of that number on your card. When you get a row, you can activate what's on the side, or a column, and you activate what's indicated on that. Either it'll give you another number that you can cross off, or it'll give you stars, which will kind of count as points, or it'll give you different things like that. It's really simple. It's super fun to play. It'll play up to 6 players, so it's 1 to 6 players. It's just like, I'm in the box, look kind of silly, like but it's a neat one. It goes over well every time I've played it. So that's Super Mega Lucky Box. The next one I have in here is Cockroach Poker Royale. So Cockroach Poker has these really neat artwork cards. They're very cartoony. Let's see if I can show you. So they're very cartoony, of different bugs basically. And what you do is, the one person will look at a card and he'll pass it to somebody at the table and he'll say, "This is a rat." And then the person that gets the card has the option to either call out whether it's true or false. And you could be like, "Yeah, I think it is a rat." And then, or "No, I don't think it is a rat." And then if the statement is correct, then the other person that passed the card on to them has to put it in front of them. If he's incorrect, then that card would have to be flipped and put in front of themselves. Or they do have the option of passing it to somebody else at the table that hasn't seen it yet. They'll look at the card, pass it on, and say, "Yeah, it is a rat." or say, no, it's not a rat, it was a fly all along. And then that person then has the same choice of, do they call out on the card, or if somebody else hasn't seen the card, they do have the option to pass it on. And you're doing that until somebody gets a set of cards in front of them. And I can't remember if it's 3 of the same kind or 4 of the same kind, but if you get a certain amount of the same type of card in front of you, you lose the game. And then the game ends. It kind of plays until there's a loser. Super fun, super simple. Cockroach Poker Royale. And then I also have in here, if I can grab that here, Illusion. Now, Illusion is a really interesting game because you'll have a card that you flip that'll have an arrow in a certain color. It'll either be red, yellow, blue, or green. And it'll kind of be like, okay, so yellow. So what you're going to try to do is you're going to have cards. You're going to flip a card. You're going to add it to the row. And you got to put it on how much the card has a percentage of that particular color. So if it's yellow and then you flip a card, say, well, this one has way more yellow than the other one. So you're going to put it on the higher end. Or say, oh, this one has almost no yellow. So you're going to put it on the lower end. But you got to be correct in the order of what you're putting. At first it's not so bad, but once you start having a lot of cards in there, and then the cards are like really different artwork, and sometimes it'll be like, well, that one doesn't look like it has so much, but it actually has a lot of little shapes. So maybe this is actually more yellow than it leads on to be, or so on. So at any time, somebody, when it's their turn, like, can be like, no, I don't think you're wrong. And then they'll call out, and then they start flipping and revealing, because at the back of the card they'll have the percentage of how much that card is covered in a certain color. So they'll reveal that, and you kind of decide, like, if they're wrong, the person who last played the card gets that arrow card as a point. If they're correct that there was a mistake, then they get to keep that arrow card as a point. It's really interesting. It kind of really makes your brain work in different ways, but it's a simple game, but it's neat. So that's Illusions. And then I have another small box kind of tucked in here. And this one is called Delt. And Delt is a neat game. So you have all these games that you play, and you have to beat the previous hand. So if they put 2 of a kind, you could beat it with 3 of a kind. Or if they've put a run of so much, then you could beat it with a bigger run, or you could beat it with the 3 of a kind. Or like there's a kind of like a poker type hand that what's stronger than another. But you cannot shuffle your cards to organize them to put what you want together. You can only do that if they're in a row in your hands. Now, if it's like 3, 5, 4, it doesn't have to be in the exact right order. That would still count as a run of 3. But so you can't organize the cards. You got to play them as so sometimes it'd be like, okay, well, it's my turn, so I'll play this one so that it puts my 7 and my 8, 9 together, and then just get rid of the 2 that was in the way. Or, you know, so you're trying to strategically play your cards so that you can create better combos in your hand. And if at any time you are unable to play, then you can draw a card. You'll have 2 cards in front of you that you can draw from. If you've drawn both those cards and you're unable to play, then you forfeit this round, and you gotta give up one of your chips, because everybody has so many chips to start with. And if you ever lose all your chips and then get a position where you cannot play again, then you lose the game, and then the game is over. And that's Delt. It is such a neat card game. We play this one lots. It's a lot of fun. And then the next one I have in here is Tiny Towns. So Tiny Town is another one that's pretty puzzly. And you have this grid that you're adding these different resources to, trying to create certain pattern that is shown on here. So you're trying to create these patterns to build the particular building. Each time you play, you'll have different patterns for the buildings. Like you kind of randomly draw a card, so it could change up. And then once you've built the pattern, you can trade it to put one of the actual buildings in there. Now, where it gets tricky is that on your turn, you can, when you're the builder, you could be, okay, I want a brown cube. So then you take a brown cube, and then everybody else at the table has to also take a brown cube. And then the builder goes to somebody else and be like, hey, I want a red cube. then everybody has to take a red cube. But maybe you don't need a red cube. Maybe you were hoping for a blue cube. And because you don't get to pick on your turn, you have to kind of do what the others have done. It can really mess you up. Plus, as you're building buildings, those spaces are now no longer available to add resources to. You're going to have to kind of try to build around it. But then there's also conditions for those buildings to score. It's like, so this one only scores if it's next to another building like this. Or this one doesn't score if it's next to one of those buildings. So you're trying to organize that, keep that aspect of the puzzle in mind, as you're also trying to get the pattern aspect of the puzzle, and then also leave yourself room for making these patterns. It's really neat. It's definitely a thinky game. It's really simple, really, but there's a lot to consider, and that's Tiny Towns. Then I have in here, oh my god, maybe it'll come out. Oh, I can have Cash and Guns. Cash and Guns is such a silly, funny, neat game. I really enjoy this. So every player gets a little foamy gun. And basically you're robbers, you've gone on a heist, and then you're back at your headquarters and you're about to kind of divide the loot up, but not everybody trusts everybody. So what you're going to do is you're going to pick a card, a bullet card, put it in front of you. Now, 3 of them are bullets, but most of them are blanks. So you're going to put that face down in front of you. Nobody knows which one you've selected. And then on the count of 3, everybody's going to take their foam guns and point it at somebody. And then that person then has to kind of decide, because they're going to count to 3 as well. And then you either stay in the game, where if you have a couple of guns pointed at you, be like, okay, well, hopefully they're blanks. Stay in the game, or you can duck out of the game. Now, if you have no guns pointing at you, you're going to stay in the game. Now, if you duck out and you had a gun pointed at somebody, that's no longer pointed at them, so they don't have to worry about whether you had a bullet or not. And then, so whoever decides to stay in this battle kind of looks at how many guns that were pointed at them were actually bullets. If they get shot, well, then they're injured, so they're not taking part of the loot anyways. But if they ducked out, they're also not taking part of the loot because it took off. So then whoever is left remaining can then take turn sharing all the loot from that particular heist. And then you do this, I think it's 8 rounds. And then at the end of the game is whoever has the most money is the winner. It's hilarious. And the foamy guns are so satisfying to play with. I'm really glad I got this one. All right. Next one I have in here is Roll for the Galaxy. Roll for the Galaxy is such an interesting, it's an engine building game, because you're trying to acquire these different cards, kind of build them and then add them to your tableau, and then depending on what you got, how they'll work with each other. But you got dice, and then you'll shake the dice, and so you'll take the dice, and depending on what you have in your tableau, which dice you get, and then you'll kind of roll them behind your screen and start selecting which action you want to activate. So first of all, you'll select 1 dice to activate an action. And there's 5 different actions to pick from. So you'll pick which action you want to activate. Then you're going to sort the rest of the dice based on what action was rolled. So each shape is a different action. So it's a ship, you're going to put all the dice that are ship underneath that one. If it's the one with the eyeball, then you're going to put all the action or the dice that have eyeballs underneath of that, and kind of sort for what you've rolled. Now, you can only activate 1 action, but all the other players are going to do the same thing. So if you activate 1, they activate a different one, and then the third player activates a third different action, then now all of those actions are activated. And if you had dice underneath that particular action, you get to activate those. If you didn't, if one of the action had dice underneath didn't get activated, those dice goes back into your cup for the next round. What's really it's really interesting because you don't know necessarily what's going to be activated. You can manipulate the dice a little bit, spend 1 dice to kind of change the value of another, and so on. Really, really neat. When I first played this one, I had no idea what was going on. I was more than halfway through the games like, oh, okay, this is why you would want to do that action. It's like, oh, this is what you're trying to accomplish. Like, it's not a simple game to learn the first time. It'll take you a good game to kind of fully understand what you're trying to do, but once you do, it's amazing. And that's Roll for the Galaxy. Then I have Clank, a deck building adventure. And this is the first time that I came across. Was it this my first one? It's a deck building game where it's also a dungeon crawl. So you'll have cards that will have feet on it, and that'll be movement, so you can move through the map with those cards. You'll have some of them that actually has makes you make some noise. It makes you clank, because you got all your equipment on you, and if you rush too much, you're gonna make some noise. And every time you make noise, you have to take some of your dice or your cubes of your color and put them in this little common area. And then some of the stuff that gets taken, because this dungeon is protected by a dragon, but every once in a while this dragon will stir and kind of get provoked, and then will kind of start looking up and reaching out, and it'll lash out. And when that happens, you take all of those cubes and you put it in the dragon bag. Now, to begin with, the dragon bag is full of black cubes, which is the dragon's cubes. But you're adding these color cubes that are the ones of you making noise and clanking. And then you'll be like, hey, so she's awakened, she's pulling so many out. If any of the colors come up, that's damage you've taken, because you were too noisy, she was able to find you. It is neat. This is a neat, fun one. And basically you're rushing into the dungeon, trying to find a couple of treasures, and then getting out of there. And then you kind of get to score based on how much treasure you collected. But once the player gets in and gets out, it starts kind of like a countdown timing. And it could be that if you ever get stuck in the dungeon and you didn't make it above ground level, you don't score. You just died. If you make it above ground level, the villagers, because you're covered in treasures, will pull you out, but you don't get the bonus of actually making it out. Next one I have is Between Two Castle of Madkin Ludwig. So this is basically a combination of the the Castle of Madkin Ludwig and Between Two Cities, and then they've done kind of a variation of it. With the Castle of Madkin Ludwig, you're building a castle, putting all these different rooms together, creating this big blueprint thing. With Between Two Cities, you're creating this 4x4 grid, putting these different type of building tiles together to create this grid. With this one, you're building a castle, but you're using tiles. And the way that it works, so you get the ground floor. Yeah, so this one here is the ground floor. This is a second floor, third, fourth, and so on. So you can't put something up above unless it has a floor above. And you can also go into the basement floors. But the trays that this has in there is just simply amazing. You can just pull this out, take the lid off, and you get started because they're all set to go. And like Between Two Cities, a player's in the middle there, so they're building that one here, and they're building this one here. And then the player that's over here is building these two, and then that player is building these two. And then at the end of the game, you're going to score the lowest of the two castles, or two castles you've been building. So you really are motivated to make both of them as high scoring as possible, because you get to only claim the lowest one. It's such a neat game. I really enjoy this one. Between Two Cities was good as well. This kind of includes, it's very similar, but this kind of includes a few variation where depending on what you connect with others, and you kind of have a little bit more freedom as where you're going to put everything. But it also activates kind of special abilities and special moves that you can do. So that's that one, Between Two Castles of Madkin Ludwig. And then I have this one here. This is one that I purchased when I was at Gobfest, and it's called Oceanos. And this one is interesting. Like, you're in a submarine, and you're going around picking cards, building your submarine, like upgrading your submarine, and trying to create like set collection. It's really cute looking. I have no idea how this one plays. I haven't had a chance to give that a go yet, just because I picked it up at Gobfest, and then kind of getting prepared to do Melcon. But before I could go to Melcon, I decided to get COVID for some reason, and I was sick. And then I was just in time for Melcon, and then got packing for moving. So Some of these games I've gotten in the last few months have gotten very little love out of me. Not because I am not interested in playing them or excited, I just haven't had the chance. This is one of them. Factory Funners. I bought this one a few months ago. It's one I've heard a lot about. Seems to me like Z Garcia talks about this one regularly, and it looks really cool. And you're building these different tunnels, I guess, with these tiles and these tubings and stuff, and kind of moving things around and trying to, you know, I watched a quick tutorial, but I don't remember. You're trying to move like this, I don't know, liquid or material from one location to another that'll help you score them. And it looks really cool. So I'm really excited to give this one a try. Factory Funner. All right, what else we got in here? Oh, let's bring these out in order. So I have Century Spice Road. Century Spice Road is a deck building game where you got these cards that you have available to you, and you have them in your hand, and you can activate different cards to do what it says. So this one allows you to draw some resources, while you'll have some that will allow you to trade some resources. So you're collecting these spices, trading the spices, trying to get the different spice requirement that you need to be able to score and collect the scoring cards above. And then those are going to be worth points, and then whoever has the most points after so many have been purchased is the winner. This one is a neat game. Honestly, this Century is a trilogy. Out of the trilogy, this is probably my least favorite one. But what's really interesting is you can take each one of these games and combine two together with another, like one with another. So you get two, so three different combinations of two, or you can actually play all three together to kind of create a bigger game. I haven't done that yet, and I'm excited to give it a try. So one time I'll do a Century day to kind of try all the different ones and the different combinations, and then that'll be cool. So that's Century Spice Road. The next one that came out is Century Eastern Wonders. I bought this one secondhand from my friend. This is actually the first Century game I had purchased out of the lot. And this one is more of an area control. So you kind of build all these tiles, you put them together, build this map. And then each location allows you to do different things where you can draw resources, trade resources, and so on. And then when you got the resources you need, you go to one of the port that has an order waiting, and then you kind of fulfill the order and you get the points of that port. I really like this one. Out of the trilogy, this is my favorite one. It's so neat. And then the more because you have to have like a little trading house on the locations that you're activating. And then the more trading house that you pull from the board, depending on which tile you put it on, which one you can pull. But the more of them you pull, then the more victory points you're revealing on your player card as well. It's just really neat. And then the last one in that trilogy is Century A New World. This one is neat too. This one is the worker placement one. My one drawback with it is the meeples are tiny, really small. And then the board that you're playing on is a flimsy piece of cardboard. Like, it's not a nice thick cardboard. It's like cardstock. And I'm not sure why they've done that. One thing I will point out though is each game comes with like a set of plastic bowls. The components in this one are really cool. Now they've done a Century Golem edition, which has like, instead of little cubes, they have gems, and it's a little bit more whimsical. I started with Century, just a regular one, so I was completely content to just get these ones. Golem, I'm sure is well, the gameplay is the same. It's just the art's a little bit different, the components a little bit different. Now with this one, it's really neat. As I mentioned, you are worker placement. You can go at any location, even if somebody is there, but you need to pay more, so you'll have to send more workers. And then at some point, one of your actions is going to be to bring everybody back and then start doing more actions. So sometimes you kind of hope somebody will bring people back before you take your turn so that you can do it at a cheaper cost. And then as you play the game, new spaces will get revealed or kind of opened up, and it's just a really neat game. And then again, it's all about collecting spices, trading spices so that you can fulfill orders. Century A New World. And then I have just one more box in here, And this is Dice Town. I bought this one at Melcon at the flea market. And then we played it there. It's so good. Oh my God, I'm so excited for having purchased this one. So first of all, everybody gets these little plastic cups and you shake your dice and then you put it down and you kind of look at it without showing anybody, and then you'll pick a dice to kind of keep, and then the rest will go back, and then you reveal your dice. And then you do this again and again, building a poker hand. Now, if at any time you want to keep multiple dice, you can do that, but you need to pay extra gold for the extra dice you're keeping. You're allowed one for free per turn. But all these dice are poker dice, so you have like 9, 10, Jack, Queen, King, and you're trying to create a poker hand. But then you'll go like whoever has the most 9 gets to activate the mine and get gold. Whoever gets the most 10 gets to take money from the bank. And then all the money that you're paying goes into the carriage, the horse carriage, and then eventually they deliver that to the bank. So then that becomes the new money for the bank every time the bank gets collected. And then there's one that allows you to kind of draw cards that'll give you different things, and then so on. They'll give you access to the sheriff badge and different things like that. Then at the end, whoever has the best poker hand gets to take the deeds of the land, and then those are worth points. So it's kind of the main goal of what you're trying to do. So cool. I really enjoyed this one. Like I said, I only played this one the one time, but it was really neat. This is 5 players, I believe. Yeah, 2 to 5, but there's an expansion in here that I think adds a 6th player, so for my family that'll be perfect. And that's Dice Town. And I keep saying that for my family that'll be perfect. We're a family of 6. It's not that often we get all 6 of us at the table at the same time, but it's nice if we can. So this was box number 20. As I mentioned, there's 6 more to go, so be sure to tune in to more to find out what's in box number 21. So bye everybody. Oops.